We're gonna go ahead and swap the stems out. So handlebars, brakes, shifters, all that could stay in place. Gonna loosen this guy. I guess if you're doing this all day, you could use a drill, but you gotta be super duper careful. You're not stripping anything. For taking off, it's not a big deal, but for starting bolts, you need to use your fingers. This is the 3-way tool, or you can go to your T-handle here. This is the ball end. The ball end is usually for the speeds turning, so if you can hold this correctly, you can do some speed turning. Some of these bolts, either they're going to have grease on them, or they're going to have some blue Loctite. The blue Loctite is meant to keep the bolt stable, stop it from vibrating loose, but also let you use your tool to take it out. All right, so we're going to be removing this. Stem is coming off, so that as soon as I unloosen these 2 bolts, it's going to loosen up your fork. Your fork can fall, especially with that it has the wheel inside. The wheel has weight, so as soon as these are loose, your fork maybe just want to drop right down. So either you're holding this at all times. My left hand is going to be holding this at all times. You're taking this off, getting your new stem, putting your new stem on, tightening it up, holding it in place, or you can always use a pedal or like a pedal strap or anything, Velcro. You can loop it around your fork, then loop around your frame. So you gotta step away, the phone rings or something, at least this strap here is gonna hold everything in place. Just careful with these pedal straps so you don't scratch your paint. So now that's on there. If I loosen this up, walk away, the fork is gonna be held in place, it won't fall. And those bolts don't have to come out, you just wanna loosen them up. 1 or 2 turns, this guy's free now. So if I lift this up, my fork will stay in place, or you're holding it by hand yourself. If it does want to drop down, not a big deal, it might fall a little bit, but you could always lift it back up. Make sure your bearings and everything are still in place. Sometimes things get unsettled, so it might not go up all the way. You might have to kind of jiggle it, make sure everything's nice and tight. So we're going to go back with our specialized stem. So we got 2 positions. This is down. They all vary. This could be a 2 degree or 5 degree or 10 degree in a down position. If you flip it over, it'll be up 5 or 10 degrees. So depending on the rider, if they got neck issues, they might want to be in the upper position. If they're just total racer with more aerodynamics, then they want to be down in the down position. Down position, okay, boom. This is more Racer X right there. We're not worried about the alignment right now. This could be in any position. We just want that on there. And I'm gonna go ahead and lift the fork up, make sure there's no play there. And then I'm gonna grab the stem, give it a twist as you're pushing down, just to compact everything. And then you wanna look on the top here, make sure that your steer tube is sitting below the stem. You do not want the stem and the steer tube together. All right, so this area right here, this is the top of our stem. The silver portion right in here, that's our steer tube. So we have spacing right here. You want at least 1 to 3 millimeters of space right here. We don't want this top of the stem flush or coming really close with our steer tube. If I take this off, top of our steer tube, we don't want these 2 sitting like this. We don't want them flush. Otherwise you'll have a headset problem. We'll never be able to tighten your headset. You'll always have some looseness going on. This needs to be up above at least 3 millimeters at all times. So if you're sitting flush, all you got to do is change or replace one of your spacers. They come in different sizes. We got very typical, I think there's 5, 10, and so on. There might be 2, 2.5. So you can always play with these. So if I took that off, slip this down, now I can see the top of my steer. That's a no-no. We'll never get the play out of our headset. We need room for the head, the steer tube to come up when I tighten. So if it comes up, we don't want this to hit the top of our top cap. Say we get our new top cap. So our top cap now touching our steer tube. That means there's tons of play that's happening. So we need that to go away. We need to go back where we were. Put our spacer back. Go ahead and put our stem back. Now we got that space right here. So then we'll go to put our top cap. The top cap will never come in contact with our silver steer tube. We got that little bit of spacing in there. So that's what we want. Boom. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten. So again, I'm gonna lift up on the bottom of the fork. And I gotta tighten I'm gonna lift up. I want all the play to go away in this headset. I'm lifting up with the fork and I'm gonna push down and twist with the stem, taking all the play out of there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up one of my stem bolts. You just tighten one for now. That's gonna hold everything in place. This guy is not gonna move. Now he has a hold of your fork. I can go ahead and release my strap over here and everything's gonna stay in place. So we're not worried about adjustment at this moment. Just wanna get everything back in place. All right, so here's an L tool right here. Again, we got the ball end, so it's just another option to see what tool works best for you. The Specialized stem here, it's got a 2-piece handlebar clamp. They just did something special. Instead of having a 1-piece, probably saving some weight. So these bolts have a little bit of thread or a blue color on the threads. That's thread locker. Again, that's just going to keep the bolt from vibrating loose on you. So you got to have something, at least blue thread locker or grease. Either one I find is pretty good. As long as you have proper torque setting, everything's going to be okay. So when you put your handlebar back, make sure it didn't get all twisted. You don't want these wires to be more twisted than they really should be. You just want nice, clean, straight lines. Make sure cables are going on the correct side. They didn't get flipped over and put over here on accident. So once you have it here, you could just do kind of a mock-up, make sure everything turns, looks good to you. Boom. And then doing this by yourself, you're holding. I'm gonna go back to one of these clamps. I got one bolt in here. And you just want to get this started by finger. If you get that tight enough, it'll stay in place for you. And we'll go ahead. I'm going to go on the opposite side. Music. Okay, at this time, all the bolts are still really loose. The handlebar is sliding sideways, back and forth. That's okay. I'm just going to do a pretty close alignment right here, where we're going to do final alignment and check when the bike is on the floor, because it's going to be even. The wheels and tires will be on the floor and balanced. So right now, I'm just going to get it pretty darn close to the middle. This one has an emblem. We got the S right in the middle. This one allows me to see that. Some of your handlebars will have lines on each side, so you can count your lines, make sure it's even left and right. And then some of these will have a bend on it, or you could just look at your levers here. Either the levers are too high or the levers are too low, but we're just kind of doing a rough right now. And we're just doing finger tight. The main thing is, when you tighten these bolts up, the clamps, we don't want the head clamp to come too close to the stem. So we always want to have a gap here at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. The gap should be pretty close to even tops and bottoms. Otherwise, the clamp head material will come in too close, touch the metal, which means you're going to put a lot of pressure on the bottom when you tighten these bottom bolts. Could stress this faceplate and want to crack it. So we're just taking up all the looseness right now. Yeah, so this isn't final tight. We might have to take another look at this on the floor, make sure everything's aligned properly. We'll go ahead and install this top cap. So top cap's going on, bolt, put a little grease on this guy. So we're going to go put this on the floor. We're going to loosen up these 2 bolts. We're going to loosen it up like you're loosening up your shoe. And then you're going to kind of readjust your foot, which is this top cap. This is our adjustment, our gentle adjustment. And I'm just doing that very gentle, finger tight. And then once we find the adjustment here, then we align our handlebars, and then we go back and tighten these 2. These locks everything in, locks in our position. All right, so headset adjustment. It's always best put the bike down on the ground. 2 flywheels are flat on the ground. And then I like to straddle the bike, throw a leg over, and now we can go ahead and double check everything. I'm gonna make sure these handlebars are nice and straight first. So you might have to loosen your faceplate. You're gonna slide this accordingly. If you have a little bend in your bar going back, you want the bar going back towards you. You don't want it to shoot up. This is very, very subtle. You might not be able to see that on the camera. But if there's a slight bend, they call it the sweep. The sweep is coming back towards you. So loosen these guys just enough where I can do some sliding. Yeah, so this has an old marking too, and the marking was right on, so I'm going to try and go back to the old marking. So now you just have to worry about your sweep. You want it sweeping back, you don't want to sweep it up or down. And when in doubt, you can tighten it up and then get off your bike, check a side view, and then you can see that bend going back this way. The other thing is your lever position. Usually we're trying to do this roughly about right there, but it could be personal preference as well. So this handlebar has some lines on one side, lines on the other. So I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty darn close. So here we got 4 bolts. I'm gonna start at you can start anywhere, but I'm gonna tighten one, then I'm gonna jump over cross diagonally. And you're gonna do gentle tightening. We're not gonna do final tightening. I'm gonna jump back across to the top. So we're doing basically kind of like a star pattern. Now I'm gonna jump diagonal back down to the last one that didn't get touched, and then just gentle tightening. If your stem has any torque settings on it, hopefully they wrote it on the side of your stem or on the bottom or the top or the face plate. This one, I don't see any torque settings for this, so maybe you could reference online, or usually they're approximately 4 to 6 Newton meters. So this is getting pretty tight, so we're going. And if you lose track of where you last left, just make sure you keep going in a star pattern. So starting at the top here, jumping over diagonally. So now I'm going to break out. I'm going to use this Ritchey Torque Wrench tool. It's set to 5 Newton meters. It also has a 4mm head, which is good. So nice thing about this, it clicks and it tells you when to stop turning. So I'm not sure if 5 Newton meters is correct. I'll have to go back and double check that. But we can always do a physical test as well without a torque wrench. So, and I do that, once I click it, I'll go back again, maybe a second click or a third click, a round of clicks. So now I'm gonna try and twist. So you're gonna find out if your hand grips are loose or your handlebar is loose. So that feels pretty good. You could even just do the bar itself. Nothing's twisting there, so I'm pretty satisfied with that. Now I can go back. Now I want to make sure that the headset's adjusted. Go back to my 3-way. So I'm going to loosen up my stem bolts that are holding the handlebars and everything in alignment. So everything should be loose. So now this guy is free. So we're not worried about alignment at this point. You can kind of center it a little bit. And then we're going back to the top cap, making sure all the play is out of the headset. We're using that front brake right here. Squeeze the front brake. And then we're gonna rock the bike forwards and backwards very gently. I'm just using 2 fingertips. And I can feel kind of a clunk. And if you put your fingers down here at the base, either right at the base of your frame and your crown of your fork, you're gonna feel some movement there. Or right at the base where the top of your head tube is and where the headset starts. You're gonna feel some clunking, you're gonna feel movement between these 2 fingers here. So we're a little loose. So we're gonna go to this top cap, we're gonna tighten very gently, just using fingertips, being very sensitive. There's a lot of looseness there, feeling a little resistance there. Now I'm gonna try that again, hold in just the front brake. You can kind of hear it too, a little bit clunking around there. So we're gonna go a little bit tighter. And just that small increment right there, go back and test. So that clunking is not going away. Top cap is getting tighter. So I'm gonna make sure that these 2 stem bolts are loose. Yeah, that one's loose. That one's loose. So if you keep tightening and tightening, this is getting tighter and you still have the same amount of movement, there's something else going on. We could have a loose wheel. Maybe your axle is loose. Maybe your brake caliper is loose. The other thing is maybe we don't have that proper amount of spacing underneath this top cap. We need at least 3 millimeters of spacing between the stem and the top of that steer tube. So it does feel like the wheel is moving a little bit left and right. I'm going to double check my skewer. I feel like it has decent pressure. I'm going to give my caliper a jiggle. Caliper feels solid. Now the other thing that could be tricking you is our fork. So we have our stanchion tube going into our lower leg. This stanchion tube, they're 2 separate pieces, so this stanchion tube could have some play inside there. So that stanchion tube could be doing this in your fork. Very minimal, but enough that there could be an issue. So you can do the same thing, put your finger on the base where your seal is and on the stanchion. Hold that front brake. Actually, a little difficult by yourself here, but you're just feeling if there's any looseness here. You can check the other side. So I'm not locating it. It's in there somewhere, and that's okay. You still want these two stem bolts loose. This top cap is putting pressure on the whole system. It should be shrinking all that movement out of there. And I could see the wheel moving left and right. So we got some weird thing going on. So maybe the hub in the wheel is loose. If we're getting it side to side, if I'm moving the wheel side to side, left and right, could have a loose hub. So I'm feeling for any resistance. Get the front wheel off the ground, turn. Now your handlebars are loose right now, so I'm grabbing the crown of the fork, moving it left and right. It should feel nice and easy, should be no resistance there. Just making sure I'm not over tightening this guy. I'm gonna tighten the top cap just a little bit more. Actually offered a little bit more tightness there. And the movement is still the same. So we're creating some good tension there. And we got the same movement there. So what I'm gonna do, I don't think we have a headset problem. We're gonna look for everything else, but we're gonna tighten up the stem here just to button that up. We're gonna straighten up our bars. I'm just going down the center of the stem to the center of my wheel here. And if you stare at it for more than 5 seconds, it's never gonna look straight. So we'll go from there. Again, this should be another torque setting for these bolts here. Go back to our 5 Newton meter. So I'm gonna go back for a second click. A lot of times when you tighten one bolt, it takes pressure off the other bolt. It tricks you, thinking that everything's tight. You want it to click immediately. There we go. All right. So now everything's tight in the system right now. We have a tight skewer, we have a tight caliper brake. Make sure that your rotor is tight. Take your hand off the brake. So the disc itself is tight, the bolts feel tight. There doesn't feel like there's any play in my shock or fork, but I still got that movement right there. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my bars to the side. This should cancel out your fork. You're still holding the front brake, shifting the bike forwards and backwards this way. Still feeling that movement. Usually, a lot of times it will cancel out the fork, so you can just feel the headset. But I think this is actually coming from the hub, the wheel.